Welcome to Authentic Living with Roxanne, a place where we have conscious conversations about things that really matter in our lives. And now, here's your host, Roxanne Derhaj.
Our interview last week was so good that we decided to turn it into a two-part series. If you missed last week, you'll find the link in the show notes. It's not mandatory that you listen, but we want to make sure that you don't miss out on this amazing conversation.
Hi, everyone. It's Roxanne Derhaj. Thanks for tuning in again this week with Authentic Living with Roxanne. Today, I'm privileged to have a colleague that has so many similarities in the field of mental health coming on today. Her name is Ronke Komolafe. Am I saying that wrong? So pronounce it properly.
Komolafe.
Komolafe. I like that's really pretty when you say it the way you say it. Komolafe. Ronke Komolafe. Ronke and I are both Forbes council members. I am the chair, and I was lucky enough. I think I met Ronke about 8 months ago now, when I believe she was already a member and I was probably just beginning myself. So today, what we're going to talk about is mental health.
I was tired of always having computer screens in front of me. I needed to disconnect, and that really helped energize me. For some people, it could be going camping. I've even done it where in my own house, I would turn off my internet for a week or for a few days and tell my family to call me on like iMessage, and it feels like a vacation. I never knew turning off your internet could really feel like you were on vacation.
Well, I think that's a great point. And, I think, having chose the field that I did quite young, that's what they don't teach you in grad school. First of all, they touch on how you take care of yourself. But it was something I when I worked with the Metro Toronto Police, like I said, it was the first job that I had out of university. And what it showed me was that this, being my head, was the most important space, that I need to really, really listen to that space, because I was, when you're in crises, you're the first responder, you're first up. And at that point, I was part of a team that was the first responders dealing with the victims of crime. So oftentimes the crime had just occurred, the scene was barely cleaned up, and we were there on site to help the victims of crime. And of course, your body and your brain, Ronke, is wired for that. And I'm wired for that. I think you have to be a bit of adrenaline junkie to do a bit of what I did. But slowly, what it started to show me was like, I would be on, and I worked probably 10 out of 31 days because they knew the impact on human beings. And then when we dealt with difficult cases, it literally took me sometimes 24 hours just to come back down. Mm-hmm. So you think about that cyclical element of, the human capacity. We are wired for short-term bouts of stress, but it's the prolonged effect, which is what you were describing, that at that point, you're trying to replenish by all the things that should give you that bump back. And you're just not being able to kind of find that timing again, because you need to just go. You've gotten so deep, with depletion, that it takes you a while just to be able to build back up. And I think finally, fortunately or unfortunately, with the pandemic, it has shown all of us, employees, leaders, CEOs, that we really need to start to listen to what people are needing when they say, I really, like when you went to what guts it took to be able to go and say, hey, I'm on the way. That now people are starting to say, those conversations we used to slight, we have to really, really take seriously, because people aren't able to just come back and bounce back like they used to, because they're depleted. A lot more people are depleted. Hence why we're seeing such a surge in anxiety and depression as well.
Yeah, and I want to touch on something that you said about the pandemic, which part of my role in healthcare is regulatory affairs, right? Assessing what the healthcare industry would look like from a regulatory perspective in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, looking at bills and laws that have been put in place and the policies that need to be implemented, both on Medicare, Medicaid, and commercial basis, right? I think once the pandemic happened, in all reality, I remember as soon as the March 20th, I remember writing a memo and sending it to my marketing team. I'm like, hey, we need to get ready for telehealth. Medicare just said, services are shut down. They're recommending telehealth. This is going to go statewide, 50 states, get ready. And they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, it's part of my job. Another assessment I did, COVID is going to last until 2021. And they're like, what? I'm like, hey, from an economical perspective, we didn't just shut down the country. There was already a plan in motion. There were individuals who were experts who evaluated this. COVID and the impact of it would be, all the way until 2021 December. My analysis, I didn't even know it would go all the way to 2022, right? Like, so let's prepare what we are going to do from a healthcare perspective to be okay. Now, my third analysis, mental health. You shut people down, isolation, loneliness, one of the key reasons people have depression, people have mental health issues. We will see a surge in mental health conditions. Let's be prepared. And for myself, I texted all my friends. I have quite a few friends in mental health. And I said, mental health issues are going to be on the rise. What can we do as friends to support each other so we don't have that? And my friend is like, we just have to all quarantine together and improve our social lives and create a schedule.
Yes.
Right? We need to work out. We're all going to work from home. We know that. Grocery shopping, how do we handle that? And we developed a social schedule that everybody aligned to. I think during the lockdown, that was the most social I saw, the most social interaction I have with my friends, right? We were all available and we were all safe, right? Nobody was interacting outside of the group. So we knew we were safe. Nobody was going to get us in contact with COVID. But we did the assessment quick to ensure there was no. Oh, my fourth assessment was PTSD. People who did all of this will not only have mental health issues, but will have PTSD. And people who are mentally healthy may have PTSD and not really understand it's PTSD. Right. A lot of what I'm seeing right now in the workplace, and even with my colleagues and friends, is we call it the COVID PTSD. I get these calls every week. I would say at this point, maybe once or twice a month. It used to be every week, where I would have professionals, healthcare professionals, executives tell me, Ronke, I'm okay, but I'm not okay. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
You tell me. And I'm like, oh, let's look at this. This is COVID. Oh, but during the quarantine, I did this and I did that. I'm like, it's not just about the social or emotional isolation. It's about the stress and the fear of the unknown that was impacted. What did you do to prevent this from becoming a traumatic situation? I don't watch TV. So for me, as soon as I heard about COVID, I had to read all the regulatory requirements to make my prediction. But I did this instead of doing this at 4 or 5 hour increments. I would stop every hour and just meditate for like 5 minutes, because I'm like, what I'm reading and analyzing will not have a long-term effect on me. I refuse to let that happen. But I think COVID has created an environment of PTSD that people don't even understand. Clinicians are not understanding how to even diagnose this because it's very different. I had somebody tell me, they could easily bounce back. They can feel they have the strength to bounce back, but something is just not there. They don't know what. I'm like, COVID PTSD, your therapist, go figure it out. And she came back about a month later. She's like, you're right. I have PTSD from COVID. I'm still walking through it. I'm better. She's like, it's not depression. It's not anxiety. It's not a phobia. PTSD is anxiety, but it's not phobia. It's not the type of anxiety that everybody's used to. This is different. So imagine, mentally you're going through, I'm not going to go see my mom who is sick and on her deathbed because of COVID. Some dad passed away. Funeral is all virtual, but we are safe. We don't have COVID. You go through the grief. There are different levels and stages of the PTSD people have as a result of COVID. Then there's that work stress of people going to lose your job, right? People are getting laid off left and right, financial stress, health stress for the entire world that we've never seen. And there's the social media impact of it, where people are getting on social media and there's a lot of fear and misinformation being provided. You watch your TV, which I don't watch TV, but every time I go to the gym or something is on about COVID, and it's not positive. It's always negative. Long-term effect, it's affecting everybody at work. So I think for employers, what I would recommend is asking and creating a knowledge awareness to say, we've had this is what we're hearing. Assess yourself and see if you have this and what resources you would need from us. You can bring a professional in to educate people about what this looks like, but something has to be done. And each individual has to take ownership to say, what's this going to look like? I was talking to a primary care doctor a few months ago, and she was telling me when, since COVID happened, and now that they're aware of the mental health impact of COVID, one of the things they do is they do alcohol usage and alcoholism. Why not? Because of COVID, they do alcohol screening. They do anxiety and depression screening. And she's like, the medication was prescribed for anxiety and depression has gone up. Yes, we're addressing the symptoms. Can we address the triggers causing the symptoms? Because if we address the triggers causing the symptoms, then we can provide a more lifelong solution where people don't have to be on medication forever.
Right. And that's the first option, right? Like people say, well, do I need medication? And when you start to say to them is, okay, tell me, help me understand what you've gone through. Like, what are your relationships like? What is your environment like? What is what the people around you, your family, your partner, your children, those types of things? What are your friendships like? And they go, what does that all have to do with anything? And I go, well, we can go put you on the anti-anxiety, which is going to give you that temporary relief, which is maybe going to make you feel a little bit less anxious, but ultimately the root cause still exists, right? So I think having more of those discussions, I think people are more open to it now. And it's nice to hear that the healthcare professionals are looking deeper, because previously, it'd be like when I was practicing, years ago, doctors would say, well, what does that have to do with anything? It's a physical symptom. I'm like, well, it's the whole body. And, therapists were considered, get out of your ivory towers. You're all about fluff. And now look at us, 25 years later, and we're starting to finally integrate our body and our mind is one and the same. So if we look at an overall strategy of both, whether you go to the doc or you go to the therapist, you have to keep both, ends of the continuum in mind. And I always go that you can start off, being mentally unwell, but you can swing all the way up to mental illness if you don't address it based on the duress or the impact of traumatic events like things like COVID or the traumas that people have already been through prior to COVID. What is happening to that percentage of people now, where this general mistrust of others? I don't know if you've experienced that, but a lot of people goes, my partner just got COVID. He just went away. He's like, I want to know who gave it to me. I'm like, how is that possible? He goes, well, I was fine and I was home. And I'm like, unless you can find a needle in a haystack, you're not going to find this. He goes, well, somebody, I'm like, yeah, obviously somebody gave it to you, but you got on a plane, you were playing ball, all that stuff, but you still see that general sense of who did it kind of thing, which is that complete macro of a lack of trust. And if we are not trusting, we're not feeling safe, which makes that whole element of dysregulation go to an exponential level even further, right? Our alarms bells are going off all the time, and we're not shutting off to go back to the parasympathetic or the relaxed state. So to your point, what you're saying, post, COVID PTSD, I could, maybe there will be that definition of what it looks like and how it's different or what similarities it has to anxiety and depression. I think that's an important topic for sure.
Yeah. And I think, to touch on what you said about trust, right? Trust is very important. And that's one of the things COVID took away from us. So here's a typical COVID scenario, right? You're going to the grocery store. People no longer felt comfortable touching the cart, right? We had to, grocery stores had to wipe it down for us. Then we wipe it down ourselves. You go to the grocery store, you're trying to touch something and somebody else touched it before. People come into the house, they jump straight and put everything in the washer and wash it. I mean, the level of insecurity, feeling unsafe, we all went through, even though I didn't go through the physical and social and emotional isolation. I went through that. The social.
Of course.
Feeling socially unsafe. 6 feet. Oh my God, you're 4 feet close. Your mask is not well put in. You touch, the level.
Or you cough in public. Like I have allergies, and I remember every time I coughed, even now when I'm traveling again, and what happens to me is because when I'm under the mask, when we had to wear them on the planes, my throat would get drier because of so I would like load up on my antihistamines before getting on a plane, and still I would cough because of the carbon monoxide under the mask. And then you'd see people looking at you and you're thinking,
yeah.
Yeah.
And human beings are meant to embrace and love upon each other and feel safe and secure. Yeah. That's one of the things we need for our nervous systems, right? But yet we're not able to have that. Even at the grocery store, gas station, you holding the handle at the gas station. Gas stations had to give us napkins and hand sanitizer, at least in Arizona. I can't speak for all the other states, but in Arizona, Arizona did a fantastic job with COVID, in the extent of the prevention. Not everybody would agree with that. But what I mean by that is compared to other states, because I got to travel quite a bit during COVID, in comparison to other states, Arizona had hand sanitizers in almost all the stores. So you're walking in, there's a hand sanitizer, there's a disinfectant. Some states were just like, don't come in, we don't have any, just don't show up. No, right. But Arizona was open, right? So they had the wear your mask, use your hand sanitizer rule going on, which helped a little bit. But it still made all of us feel unsafe. I mean, in 2020, I'm wearing masks in America. Are you kidding me? I would have paid millions of dollars in 2019 to tell you that would never happen. Not in America. We have the same.
Yes, maybe not. Maybe other parts of the world, but not. You're so right.
Not in North America. Yeah. We got that.
So this dialogue about mental health, that's it's something that should have been happening. I would say, 15 years ago, and it's 5 years ago we knew it, but now it's a non-negotiable. So for employers listening out there or senior teams, and some of them I'm sure have done a lot of things. I'm going to assume that a lot of environments have gone on, made sure they had EAP services and flex benefits and all those things. What are some of the recommendations? Now people are probably still seeing this impact we're talking about, Ronke. What might be a couple of things that you might tell them to consider, or questions to ask themselves if they look at their committees, their wellness committees, their health and benefits, the short-term and long-term disability, and just overall health strategies for the environments that they're in?
How do you feel when you're about to get to work? Logging into the computer in the morning or driving to work? What's your level of anxiety? Most employers don't want to know that. There's a risk to that. There's a liability risk to asking that question. But the immediate supervisors can ask it in a one-on-one, right? I used to, when I had a lot of people reporting to me, every one-on-one started or ended with, are you happy? You can rephrase it in a way it doesn't cause liability. To get the feedback, you need to better support them, right? Because it looks different for everybody. And a company cannot implement all the services it needs. But acknowledging and hearing the voice of people does begin healing in people, as opposed to ignoring people. Does that make sense? So if somebody tells you they have anxiety coming to work, or they don't want to come to work, why? Maybe it's traffic, not actually the work. I used to, there was a time not everybody works remotely, right? But at least the people I work with. Back then, I used to tell my employees before COVID, if you ever wake up in the morning, you don't feel like driving, you have the right to work from home. Way before COVID, just all you have to do is text me. Don't just decide to work from home. Text me, email me, don't call me. Text me or email me. Let me know you're working from home. That's all I need. So I'm not looking for you or expecting you to be present in the meeting that you're calling in for. It just helps us to be more cohesive as a team. Send an email to me and the rest of the team so we know where you are. Because for me, that was the feedback I got from one of my employees. The anxiety of getting stuck in traffic for an hour and a half. And it's not her fault. It's because one of the kids couldn't sleep, or she's on her way to work. She was called back from the daycare, something. It's okay. So I think the flexibility and asking employees how they're doing and what they need. We can't meet everybody where they are, but we can do the best that we can. The EAPs, I think EAPs are great. I used the EAP for a couple of my employees. Had an employee come into my office one time. As soon as she opened the door, was like, "Oh no, you're about to have a panic attack." And she's like, "No, I'm good." 3 days later, she comes into my office and has a panic attack. Literally, she could not breathe. She was in her office. She runs in, and I could tell this was going to happen. I saw it coming, and I kept trying to, she had a lot going on. But as soon as it happened, she had a safe place to go. And, we did everything we could for her to be okay. I had another employee who came to my office in tears one day, and I'm like, she started to talk, and I'm like, "What you're talking about is very personal. I'm okay hearing it, but are you going to be comfortable with me in 2 weeks? So let's have you talk to EAP first. And after that, if you still feel like talking to me, I'll be all ears." Because I feel like the EAP would have helped her process her emotion well, where by the time she talks to me, she would not be, not have regrets or feel like she had divulged too much information to the point of
Too many personal information, and for her to back up. Yeah. And it's having that bridge, right? Like when I worked as an executive, that was the majority of our training, right? Like, how do you support and deliver to the EAP, make sure they get the right support, do the appropriate follow-up, but so ultimately they can come back to work and be able to focus again on performance with having, the ability to function. So I think you're absolutely right. So just something as simple as, how are you doing?
How are you doing? Yeah, team building. It's interesting as leaders, right? We go into meetings and we just want to speak. We want to tell people what's going on, bring them up to date, make sure they're aware. It's great and it's excellent. Let your employees also speak. Have them lead the meetings. Let them lead their peer-to-peer discussion about how they're doing, as opposed to a leader doing it, right? Because I love going to lunch with my employees. They don't like going to lunch with me.
They're like, "Oh no, it's lunch with the boss."
Exactly. For me, it's going to lunch with my employees, right?
Yes.
The professional relationship is already there. I'm comfortable with them. They're not comfortable going to lunch with me. And it took me a year to find out. "Oh, you guys don't like a regular Tuesday lunch? You should have told me." Okay. And I would like to take maybe 2 or 3 people as opposed to the entire team. So what I did was I just changed it to a monthly lunch with everybody. And I let them plan it, and I show up and I don't even speak. I let them just chit chat, or we would have happy hour where they're more relaxed. And I make sure I'm not leading. I step back and let them be themselves. Right. But I realize they're not as comfortable. And as a leader, I don't know why. It's not that because I ask, it's not that I'm a bad leader or they feel uncomfortable, but they want to have that level of respect and professional relationship with me. And for me, I already had that with them. It's natural. It's, I'm even unaware of it because it's so normal. But for them, almost, I don't want to be overly comfortable with her to the point where, I say or do something wrong, which, I'm like,
so to have that healthy, happy kind of buffer between them and you, and then also to allow them the space so that they could just be really, really open with their peers.
Yeah, peer-to-peer, and continuously evaluate what's out there. There's some social media sites that are very great. We all use Slack. We use Teams. We use different levels of engagement. As a leader, jump on and socialize with them. Having them feel a sense of safety really matters, because COVID made us feel unsafe, right? So if we're looking at long-term effect of COVID in a workplace, it's now making employees feel safe, right? Now, the unsafeness everybody's feeling out there is the layoffs happening, right? We see all these big companies that we think are financially viable laying people up. As a leader, you may have limited control over that, but let your employees know you care. Let them know they can feel safe with you. And that comes in with just being able to have a conversation on Slack. I worked with a great leader recently. Every morning she would check in. at least every day, because sometimes she's in meetings for 5-6 hours. She can't, but she would check in, how's everybody doing? This is how my day is. And she would send an emoji. It could be a happy, sad, stressed out emoji, but her
Frustrated, yeah. Yeah.
would like people open up, and then people would tell you, oh my God, I'm on my 6th cup of coffee, or oh no, I had to go meditate. No, I had to go run for like 3 minutes. And then you can easily reach out and be like, are you okay individually? But she opens and provides that safe harbor for people to really talk. So I think there's lots of programs out there. You need to engage with professionals who really, this is their area of expertise. Everybody's creating a wellness, team. But if you're assessing the teams you're bringing in, right? What's their strategy? How do they evaluate their strategy? What's their short and long-term outcomes? How are employees engaging in this, right? So I think there's a lot that employees need to do, but it's not a cookie cutter. It's
absolutely not.
Ongoing program.
Yeah. Well, Ronke, this has been amazing. So I need to be able to tell you that Ronke and I have a lot of similarity, but what we're also going to be doing is we're going to be doing an event together coming up on May 8th. And Ronke, so March 8th. Oh my goodness. I just had a brain freeze there. March 8th. And it's Ronke, tell them the title and the time. And then we'll be putting out a lot more social in the next week about the events. So tell everyone a little bit about the event, and then we'll wrap up things on this end.
Oh, thank you so much, Roxanne. So the event is about women. March 8th is Women's International Day. As women, women have a lot in common, not just by being women across the world and having different feminine or masculine features and workplace experiences. But we want to support each other. Empowered women empower each other, right? That's the slogan I always love to say. So our focus on our event is women in leadership, how to pave the way forward. How do we empower each other to continue to succeed in our personal and professional lives? How do we pave the way forward for the women coming behind us, and for the ones who are our peers who have not had the same leadership opportunities that we've had? And how do we continue to graciously appreciate the women who have paved it forward for us, right? So this event is really, I think it's the speakers who are going to be speaking. There's one of the most exciting part of the events because they're coming with real life experiences of what it means to be a woman in leadership and how they paved it forward or plan to continue to pave it forward. And we'll be touching on mental health, on workplace environment, and how to succeed in a place where you're the only woman or the youngest woman or the oldest woman or you're just feminine. How to really be able to express yourself as a woman in a way that is acceptable and not seen as being bossy or being seen in a negative way. How do we as women strengthen ourselves mentally, socially, professionally to succeed? So we'll touch on a lot of topics. So I hope your viewers can tune in to and attend.
Yes, we'd love to see you all there. And it's going to be March 8th, 12 p.m. Central Time. And to look out on socials and you'll see the ability to go on the link and sign up. So what am I hoping that you got today, and what did I get? I think it's as simple as we are whole beings. We are not just our bodies, we are also our minds, and we have to get back as best as possible, or we all as individuals and leaders need to think about safety and that lens that we have not recaptured since what we've gone through post-COVID. Try to ask the simple things, the basic things that maybe you would have learned as a child when you met someone, a basic smile, or how are you doing today, or what is new. Sometimes those basic things might open the door to some opportunities that may be standing right in front of you, but you may not be aware. So be gentle and kind as much as you can. And, once that's oftentimes what all that people need to just be able to start to open up. So Ronke, thanks so much again. Thank you for spending your time, and for everyone for listening in. If you're needing any more information, reach out to me at roxannedurhodge.com, and I'd be willing to share any kind of support that you're needing. And also Ronke's information. Ronke, where can they get a hold of you if they're needing to connect?
Feel free to email me. You can find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Ronke Komolafe, on LinkedIn, or you can email me at info@I, P as in Paul, B as in boy, H as in house, A, and I'll be more than happy, .com, sorry, info@ibpha.com. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or provide any help you need.
And all those pieces of information will be in the show notes as well. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll chat with you next week. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Authentic Living with Roxanne, creating the space for positive, healthy change. Roxanne is a keynote speaker, psychotherapist, and coach. To work with Roxanne, visit roxannederhaj.com/blueprint. We'll see you next time on Authentic Living with Roxanne.